All right, what's up, good people, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you guys for tarrying and waiting for me to come on. I know it's later than I normally would come on, but thank you. Thank you for waiting. What's up, Maria? What's up, Kiana, and everyone else who just joined? I can't see your name because it just shows people join. What's going on, good people? Do me a favor, share this video. And again, if you would like to help, please contribute. It just takes a little of $2, just $2, $2 a month. That's it. I need your help. That's it. If I don't get the money, I can't come on here and give you all this information. So definitely, I appreciate all the support that you guys have given me so far, and those who have contributed, just the phone calls, the gift cards, the gifts, and the contributions, the financial contributions. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, tonight's is going to be, how do I set this up? Tonight, I'm going to talk about a lot of things that's going to cause us to think, right? And so I don't want you guys to look at me and be like, where's Mark going with this now, right? So just follow me, right? I just tell you a little bit of my day. Let's just talk about it, my day. I've just been vexed all day. And I'm going to tell you why I've been vexed. I've been vexed because as an activist, we have to have wins, right? We have to have a win. We have to see progression in order for us to continue doing what we do. If we don't see progression, we won't continue doing what we're doing. And we need to have that. So today has just been a really all week, just been a very, very, very heavy day that you've seen the system over a repeated amount of times fail. And when you see that often and often, and when you have to settle for just nominal victories, you kind of get discouraged. You really do. You really get discouraged. And I'm human, just like the next person. I don't walk around with a Superman cape on thinking that all is well. I have to encourage myself, and other people have to call. And I'm telling you guys, it is definitely heavy, because when you see the system constantly keep failing and keeps failing and keeps failing over a period of time, you get discouraged, right? You really do. You get discouraged. So for those who are watching now currently, just bear with the stream. It's going to hold up. It's kind of glitchy in the beginning. I don't know why it's doing that. So let's talk about my first topic of the night. You guys seen my first post of the day. I went to the hearing this morning for Taheerah Ahmad. I went to the hearing today. It was her sentencing hearing. And let me kind of set this up for you guys. For those who don't know who Taheerah is, I just briefly run down who she is, what happened to her, for those, just to give you just a general background. And this is the person I'm talking about here. So that way we can be on the same platform. But so let me get this here. All right, here we go. This is who I'm talking about here, is Taheerah Ahmad. Last year around, is my book. I get my book. I forgot my book. I gotta get my book, y'all, because my book tells you so. Hold on. Let me get my book. Okay, my book is in the car, so I'm just gonna have to remember all this stuff. So sorry about that, guys. Last year I was telling you guys, you know about this story. Taheerah went to her. She's a mother, Tulsa mother. She has 3 daughters. I'm not gonna call their names out. She has 3 daughters, ranging in ages of 11. I believe the middle child was around 8 or 9, and the baby was around 5 or 6. So that's the range there. So last year, about a year ago, she had 3 girls. She tied up her oldest girl. She tied up the oldest girl and the middle girl. Strapped them around with their hands bonded. And so she ended up stabbing the middle girl, got away and ran to her auntie Barbara Ann's house. Today I posted the video of Barbara Ann and her family talking about Taheerah. So the middle girl ran and said, Auntie, mommy's hurting the younger girl. So the older girl, it was stabbed by her mother over 100 times. She also had a pitchfork that she was hitting in her head. And Taheerah also set the house on fire. So the house was set on fire. Taheerah left with the youngest girl, and she was on the run for 24 hours. They found her in a parking lot, and they arrested her. So today was her sentencing hearing. So let me set this up for you guys. So it was a sentencing hearing. She waived her preliminary hearing. Preliminary hearings where you go with the discovery and all this, all those different things. She waived the preliminary hearing. She waived her rights as a parent. She didn't want to object or be all that. So she waived that. So today she enters, 2 months ago, she enters a blind plea. A blind plea is basically, it's saying that I will accept whatever the judge gives me. That's what a blind plea is. I understand that the prosecution offered her a plea deal. She rejected the plea deal, from my understanding, and she just accepted a blind plea deal. I do not know what the prosecution offered her. I just know that she did not accept the prosecution plea deal early on this year, and she entered a blind plea. So today, her blind plea was, she entered. The Judge Don Moody, who's sitting in for Sharon Holmes, because Sharon Holmes is out dealing with her recovery. So Don Moody is sitting in for Sharon Holmes. They played the video of Taheerah when she was arrested. Off the top of my head, I can tell you a lot of things that came to my remembrance. During the video that was being played, the audio, because we heard the audio, we couldn't see the video, Taheerah was visibly delusional. It's the first thing that came across the field. She was delusional, right? She did not really say that she was the parent of her first 2 kids. She loved her little baby. So that's the thing that kind of came out to me. She really didn't want to talk about the stabbing, but what she did is she talked about how she was abused as a wife and how she had to flee to Vermont from Nashville. Then she had to get restraining orders out against her ex-husband, which are her children's father. Okay. I'm giving you a little backstory. So her children's father, so from what I have uncovered dealing with the family, Taheerah has had a lot of family issues dealing with the identification of who her real father is. That's been an issue for her. None of what I'm telling you is an excuse for her behavior. I'm just giving you the backstory so you will know a lot more. So when you think about, when I tell you about the sentencing, for those who already know, but when I talk about the sentencing, you guys will already know, here's the backstory. So Taheerah, during the interview, recalled her oldest daughter threatening her. Her oldest daughter going through, there was one time that she described her oldest daughter, and she said her daughter was hell, even when she was carrying her. So what I've noticed is that in the beginning of her relationship with her child, there has been a strain. This was her oldest daughter. There was a strain. What's up, Quinn? There was a strain. So the oldest daughter ends up becoming just like every other child, you know, some good, some bad, but they're a child. Okay. Taheerah goes on to say that she put her oldest daughter in at Vanderbilt to get her committed, to let her talk to a psychiatrist. I don't know if her oldest daughter was diagnosed with anything. She didn't say anything about that. And again, this is coming from Taheerah, and I have not confirmed this backstory. I'm just saying this is coming from Taheerah. So she's saying all of these things about her oldest daughter. So she painted the picture that her oldest daughter remind her of her ex-husband. She thought that her ex-husband was actually coming in the home and lived downstairs, was going to come in the home and hurt and damage her or fight her. Now, a little bit more backstory. When Taheerah fled from to go to Vermont with her husband currently had an additional 2 girls. So she has 3 girls, an additional 2 girls, and she fled. But the husband apparently took out a restraining order out against her, so she had to turn those 2 girls into the state. Taheerah's husband is from Africa. I don't know if he's a citizen or not, but he's from Africa. So that's the backstory. I wanted to show you that, first of all, she's dealt with a history of trauma. That's all I wanted to say. A long history. Again, everything I'm saying is not excusable for her actions. I just want you guys to paint this picture, right? So she goes, and during the interview, she doesn't even acknowledge her 2 oldest girls actually being her daughter. She only references her youngest girl as her daughter. She loves the youngest girl. I'm just talking about this for you psychologists out there. So the oldest girl remind her of her father and all the sinister ways. So in Taheerah's mind, when she was stabbing her, what she said in the interview is that she felt like the girl was going to jump on her. She felt like the girl was plotting evil towards her. Now, one of the things that was making it significant is that the interviewer asked Taheerah, well, what set it off? What was it? She said it's just been a rough week, and they never read a book. They never read a book. So apparently that night, all 3 girls were quiet reading a book. Taheerah apparently snapped and thought something was wrong. Started thinking that the oldest girl was plotting against her. Okay? Delusional, right? So she goes, binds the girls up, and like I told you, she binds the girls. Only 2 girls was binded up, not the third one. The little baby, that's her angel. She binds the girl up. The oldest girl, she stabs over 100 times, uses the pitchfork. The middle girl runs to her auntie, Barbara Ann. Barbara Ann goes to the house. Taheerah is gone. There's a fire. There's grease everywhere. Taheerah had grease all over the place, right? There's a fire. Barbara Ann saw the oldest girl laying on the bed. She administered as much first aid as she could, and she called the authorities. The fire was put out, and to this day, the oldest girl is alive. The oldest girl is recovering. She is going back to school. This is what we heard. She is back in school. She did have to wear a helmet at one time. So I'm just trying to give you guys the psychological damage that is done to the oldest girl. She had to wear a helmet because of the damage that was done to her head. But she is alive and she is ticking. Thank God she is, because we wouldn't have wanted a capital murder situation, because these kids don't deserve that. These kids have another opportunity to have a life, right? So it got down to the sentencing, and the judge today, she basically said that we understand that you've had history of trauma and we don't take domestic violence lightly. However, it is no excuse. So let me just fast forward to the sentencing. And mind you, while this is going on, Taheerah's face is like, boom. There is like the way she looks in that picture is the same way she was pretty much looking in court. Her head was down at times and all those different. In her mind, she believed at that time that that girl posed a threat to her in her mind. So the sentencing came down. The judge said, you took 3 lives, so we're going to give you 3 lives. So this was her charges. Let me bring it up on here on the screen so you guys will see it. I'm on OSCN. Anybody can go and do this. So I don't want you guys to see, oh, Mark Lewis is doing something that I can't do. Yo, this is on OSCN. You guys could go and do it. Let me put it full screen. She had 1 count. The reason I'm taking this time is because this is social justice at its finest, and you guys need to see what happens. Count 1 is aggravated assault by means likely to produce death. I believe that count was for the count of trying to kill the oldest girl, the stabbing. Okay, aggravated assault, means likely to produce death. The second count is child neglect. Second count. Third count is child neglect. She has 3 kids. The first one was for the first child. The 2 child neglects was for the other 2 children. And then you have first degree arson. Because I told you, she set the house on fire, right? So those are her 4 charges. So today, Judge Don, she handed down a sentence for counts 1 through 3 is life in prison. Count 1 is life. Count 2 is life. Count 3 is life. Now, they are ran concurrent. What does that mean? That means that they can run together. They're concurrent. They're together. So she has to do life for all 3 counts, right? So then for count 4, now keep in mind, she has to do life, but it's 85%. So she lumped that in and she must do 85%. Life in, let me go to the other count. Count 4 was first degree arson. That's setting it on fire. She got 10 years for first degree arson. That was her. So she has life 3 times, but it's actually consecutive. So it's really 1 life. And then she has 10 years, 10 years for the first degree arson. So what does this mean? This means that her first 3 charges of life is life, life, life. They're concurrent, so they're going to run together. So it's 1 life technically. Life in Oklahoma is 45 years. 45 years. So 85% of that is 37. Okay? Then after she serves 37, she has to go and serve her arson charge, which is 10 years, but she has to serve 85% of that 10 years, which is 7 or 8. So we're looking at 47 years. Taheerah is 40 years old. If her sentence, or she completes all of her sentence, she'll be 87 years old when she gets out. Around 80. 87. Okay? Now, I asked myself this question because we're talking about the counts, and I was like, why did they do that? And this is why I'm taking my time. I'm taking my time with this because I think we need some clarity and some understanding. I asked myself, I said, why didn't the judge just do count 1, life, and count 2, maybe 5 years? Count 2, maybe 5 years. Why would you give 3 life sentences? Because the range that a judge can go is from probation to life in prison for child neglect. It is huge. There's a huge range, probation to life in prison. Okay. So I asked myself this question. I said, why would she give 3 life when she's already going to make them consecutive, right? So it doesn't really make sense in you and I mindset. It doesn't really make sense that she would give 3 separate lives, but she's going to lump it into one life. So I had to make some phone calls. So I called an attorney to try to get some phone calls and to try to get some answers. The reason they do that is because, let's just say, let me pull this back up here right quick. Let's just say that Taheerah goes and gets a sentence reduction on this count 1. Let's say she get a sentence reduction on this count 1. Instead of life, they end up reducing her sentence to 10 years. I'm just throwing this out. Just 10 years for that one count. But because Judge Moody added 2 additional life sentences, she has to also still do life. So even if count 1 is reduced, she still got life with count 2. If count 2 is reduced, she still has life with count 1 and count 3. If count 3 is reduced, she still has life with count 1 and count 2. So in essence, what Judge Moody did was to ensure that anytime, and it's called stacking charges, that's what they do. So to ensure that Taheerah will never see the light of day, even if an appeals happens or a rejudgment happens or something happens later on in Taheerah's life and she gets a sentence modification, she still has 3 life sentences. Even though they're run concurrent, she still has 3 life sentences. That's what I understand, and that's why I understand. That's why judges do that. Okay? Now, before you guys go on a tangent and say to yourself, well, Mark, she deserves this. I can't believe you're taking up for her. I'm not taking up for Taheerah. I'm not taking up for Taheerah one bit. One bit. But in my opinion, I don't believe that those 3 kids or the rest of the 2 who were mentally scarred, I don't believe she deserves life for that. That's just my opinion. I believe she deserves 20 plus years, 20, 30 years for count 1, what she did to her oldest daughter. But the youngest girl got away. She has no damage. The baby she had the baby. She didn't harm the baby. So I wanted to put this into perspective for you guys, because when I posted this, everyone was like, good, good, good. I'm glad. She should be hung. She should be this. She should be that. But I want you guys to understand what state you live in. This is Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the #1 incarcerated state for women, and it's the #1 incarcerated state for men. But let's just talk about women. It's the #1 incarcerated state for women, and it has been that way for the last 15 years. So what are you saying, Mark? What I'm saying is that you cannot tell me there is not a coordinated effort to penalize women harsher than it is to penalize men in the last 15 years. Don't believe me? Watch this video.
Tend to get much longer prison sentences than men, even when they're convicted of the same crime.
What you're about to see is a dramatic example of that apparent double standard. Channel 8's Maureen Wartz has tonight's Channel 8 close-up.
So let's just really show everybody that Oklahoma's full of bad girls.
She's always been able to sing, but it wasn't until recently that Ashley decided she could no longer be silent. She found her voice 8 years into a 20-year sentence at Mabel Bassett Correctional Facility.
It was worth it. Because I get to use my voice to help somebody else, hopefully. Not just myself.
At 22, Ashley was homeless with 2 children. She found a man to take her in, but according to court documents, endured a year of brutal physical and mental abuse. In spite of all of that, she and the man had a child together, a baby girl.
She was early. She was 2 months early. So we had to stay at the hospital because, they had to keep her in an incubator. And the day she was born, he raped me in the hospital shower.
61 days later, life changed.
And I remember telling the people on the phone, I think she's gone.
The she was Ashley's baby girl. The infant was sharing a bed with her and her husband, and at 4 a.m, he woke her up telling her the child wasn't moving or breathing. She called paramedics, but it was too late.
They show up within minutes. And I carry her because we were living in the attic. So I carry her downstairs to the front door because I was ashamed of them coming into the house. Because I knew how bad it was.
According to court documents, her husband later told her he put the baby under his leg to sleep. But the medical examiner's office wrote that it didn't know what caused the baby to die.
I just remember going into this room by myself and holding her and telling her how much I loved her and how beautiful she was and how sorry I am that I failed.
Garfield County authorities charged Ashley and her husband with child neglect. She was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Her husband, who was with their baby girl in the bed, got only 10 years. An apparent double standard in sentencing. But for Ashley, who learned during the trial that she was pregnant again, the day got even worse.
And the day I was sentenced, I was on the stand and I was going into labor, and I had my son within the hour of being sentenced.
Ashley clearly was no model mother. But why did the law hold her to a tougher standard than the man in the death of her baby girl? Experts say it's common in Oklahoma.
The woman should have known better, and boys will be boys.
Our check of child neglect convictions shows Ashley's case is far from unusual. When children get hurt by men, mothers frequently pay a bigger price. How big do you think this problem is?
I think it's very significant.
Chris Steele with Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform estimates there are around 300 to 500 women just like Ashley in prison right now. Mothers serving double, triple the amount of time behind bars for crimes against children, often committed by their partners.
That's just unjust, and I don't think that anybody in Oklahoma would be okay with that dynamic.
When it comes to some of those crimes, like child neglect in Ashley's case, there's no sentencing limit. It could be probation or even life.
But we all deserve a second chance. And let me prove to you that I'm not that 22-year-old girl that was broken and thought that it was okay for someone to cut me or rape me.
Her ex is out of prison. Ashley's got about 9 more years left. She doesn't have much right now. Hope can be hard to find in a place like this. But she does have her voice. Maureen Wirtz, Tulsa's Channel 8.
A bill in the current legislative session seeks to undo the disparity in sentencing between men and women, and it would pay special attention to mothers in child neglect cases who are afraid to report abusive spouses and boyfriends. Secret, though.
Okay, so I wanted you guys to watch that because I think it's important to show the history, how there is a double standard and how women have been charged heavily more against child neglect than the fathers. Okay. Now, Koga, you said you don't agree. She didn't suffer any damage. I'm talking physical and mental. These kids suffered mental damage completely. Okay. But the 2 younger kids did not suffer any physical damage at all. If they would have suffered damage, she would have been charged for it. But they didn't suffer any form of damage at all. So that's what I'm saying. I want to put it into perspective for you. Susan Smith got 30 years in prison for killing 2 children. There are women right now who are serving less time for killing their children than women who have not killed their children. So, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, me learning this case, me sitting through this court case, me listening and talking to their family and learning a lot more about what really drove this person to do something like this, I think the sentence was extreme. Just my opinion. Yeah, I have to agree with it or not. It's just my opinion. I think the sentence was extreme. I think there are and I know that there are mothers out here. To me, I think Taheerah should have been punished, and I think Taheerah should have also been rehabilitated. I believe that she should have been able to be sentenced to a mental evaluation or mental hospital after she has served her punitive time behind bars to atone for her actions on what she did to her oldest daughter. But guess what? That doesn't change anything at all. So, to me, in my opinion, I believe that the state just sent a mentally ill person to prison, just like the rest of these people out here. A lot of people are behind bars because they are in prison. Do it. Like I said, I believe she should have had to go and serve time for her count. 20, 30 years, 25 years. But the way it's set up and the way it's structured, she would have to fight each life sentence. And she probably is not going to fight at all. So I just wanted to talk about this because I think it really just kind of bothered me because in my opinion, I saw a really sick person that needed help and they didn't get any help. But again, you cannot ask for help after you created the problem. The help should have come before you've done your damage. And that's where she herself is in this problem. All right, y'all, let me go to my next subject. And I hope you guys are still with me. I'm sorry I took a little time on this. Let me go to my next subject here. Here we go. Let's talk about this. This lady right here. This lady right here is a former, she's former National Guard. She actually was charged with a crime. And she's pregnant. Let's read some of this here because I thought it was very, very, very interesting. This is her brothers talking. His sister is locked up far away in East Alabama jail, awaiting the birth of her child, facing a possible death sentence. Terrell Ranshaw said his family wants to have a only fair investigation into the mysterious circumstances surrounding her pregnancy. She wasn't pregnant when she went in jail. This is what he told her. So she's 26 years old, LaTanya. She's 26 years old. She's been in jail without bail for about 17 months, and is 8 months pregnant. On December the 5th, 2017, she was charged with capital murder in Cusca County robbery and fatally shooting the 87-year-old Thomas Virgil Chandler. She's charged along with her now former boyfriend. She's accused of being the getaway driver. How'd she get pregnant, y'all? How'd she get pregnant? Think about it. How'd she get pregnant, y'all? Let's talk about this. She been in jail for 17 months. How'd she get 8 months pregnant? So kudos to the family wants to have an investigation and in reference to this because it is something that it is they need to find out. And so when I was preparing to come on here, we was talking about problems dealing with women in prison. I looked up Susan Smith, right? And those who know Susan Smith know that Susan Smith killed 2 of her children. I use her because I was in North Carolina at the time when that happened. But Susan Smith will be eligible for parole in 2 years, ladies and gentlemen. But while I saw this Alabama story, Susan Smith came to my mind. And she has openly admitted, let me talk to you guys right quick. While she was in prison, this is what's been going on with Susan Smith. And I thought it was very interesting since we're talking about the Alabama issue that has happened. All right, let's go here. It says here that in the past 7 years, she has been disciplined at least 5 times for various infractions, including self-mutilation and the use of a possession of narcotics and marijuana. Each infraction has resulted in a loss of privileges, including loss of visitation, canteen, and telephone privileges. Twice in 2010 and once in 2015, she was disciplined on drugs charges, losing privileges more than 1 year. In 2000, Smith, then 28, was disciplined for having sex 4 times with a 50-year-old guard. I think, Shonda, you had just said something in reference to that. With the 50-year-old guard, and he spent 3 months in jail. The following year, a prison captain, Alfred Rowe, also pleaded guilty to having sex with Smith and was sentenced to 5 years of probation. So, ladies and gentlemen, while we're talking about this woman who is now trying to figure out, or their family's trying to figure out why she's pregnant, the only answer to this is a guard, or maybe one of the former, maybe an inmate, which could have trustee status. And trustee status is little freedom. They go out and clean. So hopefully that family will get to the bottom of this in reference to this, because you can't be in custody for 17 months and pregnant for 8 months. And the question is, what's going to happen to that baby? It sounds like the baby's probably going to be turned over to the state. That's going to be interesting. But they'll find out who it is. This sounds like out of an episode out of Orange is the New Black, because I think one of the girls end up being pregnant and they use DNA to find out who the father was. So they'll find out who it is completely. All right, guys, let me go on to my next subject here. Yes, some of you guys have seen this horrible thing. This woman, her name is Cadesha Bishop. She's out of Las Vegas. She did something that was horrible. She literally pushed an elderly man out the door of the bus. Let me show this, guys, to you right here. Let me back it up. She pushes the elderly man off the bus. You see that? Just like that. She pushes this man off the bus. Why did she push this man? Lord knows, I don't know. But she ends up saying apparently she was doing a lot of cursing and everything on the bus, and apparently this guy told her to be nicer to people. He's 76 years old. Well, she's being charged for murder. Why? Because she gets off the bus, she runs away. She never saw about his injuries after she pushed the man. The man ended up going to the hospital the next day. They kind of released him, but a couple of months later, he succumbed to his injuries, and the coroner says that he was dead due to blunt force trauma. Because she did that, she is now charged with capital murder. And good. She should be charged with capital murder for something like that. It's just horrible. All right, guys, let me go on to my next subject here. Thank you guys for hanging on. I know it's been kind of long. All right, let's talk about this, guys. The SAT. Right now, we are in a college year. You know, there are a lot of colleges, a lot of you guys are sending your kids. You're going to be sending your kids off to school. You're going to be sending your kids and all those different things. And they have to take their college SAT in order to get into college. They have to take the SAT score. Well, we see here that College Foundation is now offering an adversary score. What the hell is an adversary score? Well, an adversary score is basically a score that says, well, you are on, it's not a curve, but they're looking at your adverse areas where you're from, your education, your community, your background. So they're going to start adding an adversary score. Apologize if I told you that. Adversity score. They're adding an adversity score. What is your adversity that you suffer? This is what they're adding, and it's going to be a score. It says here the overall disadvantage level. Let me put it up on the screen. The overall disadvantage level, known in admission circles as the adversity score, will be a single number from 1 to 100, with 50 set as an average. Under a formula established by the College Board, higher scores will indicate higher adversities. Colleges that will use it to see the number on the template called an environmental context dashboard, which also includes data on advanced placement, participation, and SAT scores at the application's high school. So they're doing this because they feel, and like a lot of you guys have complained, that sometimes my kid don't take good scores, right? Sometimes we don't have access to tutoring. Sometimes our economic adversity allows us to not be able to prepare. My child may have to work in order to keep the lights on. My child may have to do this in order to do something. So they're adding an adversary score. Adversity score. Sorry, I keep saying adversary. I'm sorry. Adversity score. So that's what they're adding. So I don't know how you guys feel about this. I think it's good. I think it's good. There's not going to be a nationality on there. There's only going to be your environment and all those different things. I know what you guys are thinking. You guys are kind of like, yeah, whatever. I understand, because I mean, when I read it, I was like, okay, what does that mean? That means that my child, because we live in a ghetto, and my child gets a curve because we live in a ghetto. But if your child is being passed up from a person who's had privilege, and she doesn't do as well because not that she is not smart, maybe she just does not do as well, then maybe having that adversity score will give her that competitive edge. And I think it's good, because we know that all things are not equal at all. We know that for a fact. We know it. All right. Hopefully you guys are getting this, but I want to talk about my final thing. And this is the commentary. My commentary completely is this. And I swear, I make it short. Here's my commentary, all right? With all of the abortion, I think I came on there last night and we talked about this, about the abortion and how states are galvanizing and all those different things. And so I was on Twitter, and I started thinking, and I started seeing a lot of comments and stuff. And I started putting one thing together to another thing together to another thing together. And I think I found a reason why. And I believe there's a racial component to this. So you probably ask yourself, why, Mark, you going with racial component on the abortion? Let's look. So this is from the Kaiser Family Foundation, Henry Kaiser Family Foundation. This is from 2015. Let me put this on the screen. This is from 2015. I wanted to look up the abortion rate for people of color, of race, right? And I wanted to look at this. And this is 2015 framework, but it is being pulled, ladies and gentlemen, from the abortion surveillance in the United States government, because I want you guys to look as like, oh, this is privately owned. From 2015, this is the table. Let's go to the map because I want to show you the map here. If you look at this map here, I want to look at Alabama because I think Alabama is very telling, right? Actually, let me go back to the table because I think the table will kind of break it down. Here's the table, Alabama table. Okay, let me take this part off. I want to do total here. Why is this thing not letting me do total? Okay. I want to do total. The data was kind of startling to me. And I wanted to really find out, is there a racial component to these abortion claims here? Not to say that I don't agree or I don't believe. So let's go back to this table here. In Alabama, there's 36% whites who are receiving abortion, 60% blacks. Others, 4% out of a total of 100. So we know Alabama is doing this. We also know that, what was the other state? Georgia. Let's look at Georgia. Whites, 28%. Blacks, 66%. The reason probably the blacks numbers are higher is because we're talking about the South. The blacks outnumber whites in the South. We know that, especially in Alabama. It's the highest concentration of African-American women. What was the other state? Ohio? Ohio, you got 52% white and 49% black. So now I'm thinking, right? Now I'm thinking, I'm like, okay. They're starting this whole component with abortions. So then I started thinking, y'all. And then this article came up. It says the U.S. birth lowest in 3 decades, despite improving economy. It says here that the American baby bust isn't over. The nation's birth rate last year reached a record lows for women in their teens and 20s, a government report shows, leading to the fewest babies in 32 years. The provision reports released Wednesday, and based on more than 99% of U.S. birth records found 3 to 788 million births last year. It was the 4th year the number of births had fallen, the lowest rate since 1986, and a surprise to some experts given the improving economy. The fertility rate of 1.7 births per U.S. women also fell 2%, meaning the current generation isn't making enough babies to replace itself. The fertility rate is a hypothetical estimate based on lifetime projections of age-specific birth rates. So, people not having births. They not having a lot of babies, right? So, we want to go off on abortion, but people not really having a lot of babies. Okay? So the racial component is this. Let me pull it up. Some of you guys may know it already, but I will go ahead and pull it up. The headline is right here. The U.S. will become a minority white in 2045. See that? 2045. In 2045, this is how the map will look. The map will look 49%. And you got the rest of this is other, multicultural, and all that. So, if the U.S. is going to become a minority white in, what's that, 20-some years, the U.S. birth rate is falling, and they're trying to stop abortions. Ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, they're trying to preserve the white race. In my opinion. Just my opinion. Because even though in certain areas, black people are having higher abortions, there's still white people, white women that are still doing it. So if the U.S. birth rate is going down and white women are still having abortions, that means that we're not going to have more white people. And they're looking at this census report. The U.S. will become minority white in 2045. 2045. Ladies and gentlemen, what does this mean? This means that individuals, in my opinion, are very afraid. And this is a coordinated effort, in my opinion, to preserve and to keep the majority, because that number of 2045 is scaring the hell out of a lot of people. They are afraid. And they're going to do everything in their power to put things together so that they will not become the minority. If they become the minority, then they also lose the power. And if you notice, the power structure in the government is changing. I'm not just talking about Obama. I'm talking about from the local perspective. You starting to see more minorities. Even from the federal perspective, you're starting to see more minorities. That is changing. Even though the fact that white men are 85% in the federal government, controlling the federal government, but they actually are 35% in the entire country. So 35% is controlling the U.S. government. I just wanted to tell you that for food for thought. Okay. And so in my opinion, I believe that all of this is a coordinated effort. In just my opinion, that we're going to focus on the abortions because we don't want people having abortions, right? And we know that our birth rate, so we need you guys to start having more babies, right? Because in 2045, we're going to now be like the darkies, the black people. We're going to be minorities. So I don't know. Share your thoughts, y'all. Share your thoughts. Shonda, you said, yep. And white women aren't having babies for economic reasons. So what do you think they're trying to do here? I think they are, in my opinion, I believe that they're trying to make people have babies. And I guarantee you, because this article came out right here, I guarantee you there will be a coordinated effort to get women to have more children. I guarantee you that. And why do they need to have women to have more children? Because the article goes on to say this. It goes on to say that, because I saw this and I thought it was very, very, very interesting. It says here, the U.S. could do more, encouraging childbearing. See? With parental leave, preschool expansion, childcare subsidiaries, and other policies aimed at helping young adults struggling with students with low debt. So that's one of the issues. But I'm trying to get the correct wording because, this is where it says. It also says, and this is more to me very telling. It also says, if trends continue, experts said the U.S. can expect labor shortages, including in elder care, when aging baby boomers need the most support. Just my opinion, y'all. I love to hear your thoughts. Shonda, you let me go read Shonda's comments again. She said, well, they also need poor minorities having babies. Why? Because the war machine, the same reason, college. Okay, I get that. But look for a push from your federal government to try to start getting women to have more kids. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you for hanging on. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions or any commentary that I've said, anything that I have, or if you have some corrections or anything, just shoot me an inbox. Let me know. I'm not an expert. I'm just good at what I do. Peace.